What would you do if a 9-year-old kid in duct-taped boots said he could heal your child, and he was right? It was cold that morning in Birmingham, Alabama. Not snow cold, but the kind that made your breath show and your fingertips sting. People rushed in and out of the Children's Medical Center on 7th Avenue, scarves tight, coffee in hand, moving like they could outrun whatever pain brought them there. But one person wasn't moving. He sat on a flattened cardboard box by the revolving doors, quietly drawing in a weather-beaten notebook. His name was Ezekiel, Zeke Carter. Just 9 years old. His coat was too big, the sleeves rolled up, and one boot was patched with duct tape. A red knit beanie sat low on his forehead, barely covering his ears. He didn't beg. Didn't ask for help. He just sat, watching. He was there most Saturdays. Staff had tried to shoo him off at first, but gave up. Zeke didn't cause trouble. He smiled when spoken to. And when he wasn't sketching, he was watching. Always watching. Most assumed he had a parent inside. Maybe a sibling. Maybe he was waiting on a ride. But no one asked questions. Not in a place like that. Across the street, a dark silver Range Rover idled by a fire hydrant. Inside sat Jonathan Reeves, late 40s, sharp jaw, graying temples. His tie hung loose, his collar wrinkled. He had money. You could see it in the gleam of his car under the hospital lights. But today, he looked spent. In the back seat, nestled in a booster, sat his daughter Isa, 6 years old, brown curls behind one ear, legs tucked under a pink blanket. Her eyes were wide but silent. The accident had stolen her laughter, her motion. One day she was racing cousins barefoot in the yard. The next, she was paralyzed from the waist down. Jonathan opened the door, gently lifted her into his arms, and walked toward the entrance. He didn't notice Zeke at first. Most people didn't. But Zeke noticed him. He saw how Jonathan carried her, like she might fall apart. Saw how her eyes avoided the building, clinging to the sky. Then, just before they passed, Zeke stood up and called out softly. "Sir, I can make your daughter walk again." Jonathan froze mid-step, not because he was offended, but because of how the words were said. Not like a joke. Not like a dream. Like a fact. "What did you just say?" he asked, turning. Zeke didn't flinch. He stepped forward, notebook tucked under his arm. "I can help her walk again." Jonathan tightened his hold on Isa. "That's not funny, kid. I wasn't joking." Zeke's voice didn't shake. No smile. Just calm, steady certainty, a grown man's stillness in a child's frame. Jonathan scanned the boy, oversized coat, duct-taped boot, cracked glasses hanging from his collar. This had to be some weird scam. He turned away without another word. But inside, Zeke's words stuck. "I can make your daughter walk again." They looped in his mind as doctors talked, neurologists, therapists, all repeating the same tired phrases. Manage expectations. Long road. Miracles take time. None of it stuck. Except that boy's voice. Hours later, Jonathan and Isa emerged from the hospital. The sun had broken through, but the air was still sharp. As usual, he carried her toward the car. And there was Zeke, still on that same box, same notebook. Watching. Jonathan hesitated. He glanced at Isa, her head rested on his shoulder, eyes closed. Too light. Too quiet. "You again," Jonathan muttered, walking over. "Why would you say something like that? You think this is a joke?" Zeke shook his head. "No, sir. You don't even know her," Jonathan snapped, setting Isa back into the SUV. "You don't know what she's been through. What we've been through." Zeke stayed steady. "I don't have to know her to help." Jonathan straightened. "You're 9, 10 maybe. Sitting outside a hospital with duct tape on your shoes. What do you know about helping someone like my daughter? Zeke looked down, fingers tracing his notebook's edge. My mama used to help people walk again, he said quietly. She was a physical therapist. She said the body remembers, even when it forgets. Jonathan squinted. So what, you watched her do stretches, now you think you're a doctor. I watched her help a man walk after 5 years in a chair. No machines. Just her hands. Her patience. And her faith. Jonathan looked around. A nurse passed, giving Zeke a small wave. A janitor nodded toward him. They knew him. I'm not giving you money, Jonathan said. I didn't ask for money. Then what do you want? Zeke drew a breath. Just 1 hour. Let me show you. Jonathan glanced at Isa, now awake, watching both of them. He sighed. Rubbed his eyes. I should walk away right now. Zeke didn't move. I should call security. Still, silence. Finally. Fine. You want to waste your time? Meet us at Harrington Park tomorrow. Noon. Don't be late. I'll be there, Zeke said. Jonathan climbed in, pulled off, didn't look back. But in the rearview mirror, Zeke still stood, hands at his sides, face unreadable, but sometimes the body just needs to remember it's allowed to move again. Jonathan watched the boy carefully. His instincts warred within him, one part ready to shut this whole thing down, another part aching to believe. He wasn't a man prone to sentiment. He was a lawyer, a realist. But watching Isla, watching the way she looked at this boy like he was a light at the end of a tunnel she'd gotten used to being stuck in, he couldn't just walk away. Same time next week? Zeke asked, brushing rice grains off his towel. Jonathan hesitated. Then, with a tight nod, said, yeah. Same time. Zeke smiled, not wide, not triumphant, just a quiet, satisfied kind of smile like he'd expected that answer all along. He packed up his things, slung the gym bag over one shoulder, and waved to Isla. See you soon. Bye, Zeke, she whispered, and this time, there was color in her voice. Life. The weeks that followed settled into a rhythm. Every Saturday at noon, Zeke was there at Harrington Park. Always early, always prepared. Each time he brought a new trick, makeshift resistance bands, homemade foot rollers made of marbles in a box, a metronome he said helped with neural timing. Jonathan stopped crossing his arms. He started bringing blankets and water bottles. He asked questions, quietly at first, then with more curiosity. Where'd you learn about the metronome? My mom had this old book from her school days. Said rhythm's a language the brain never forgets. And the marbles? Pressure. Texture. Sometimes feet respond to play before they respond to therapy. And all the while, Isla got stronger. The first time she wiggled her toes without being prompted, Jonathan nearly dropped his coffee. He knelt in the grass, held her foot in his hand, and asked her to do it again. She did. Zeke only nodded. Told you the body remembers. By week 6, Isla could lift one leg half an inch off the footrest. Week 8, she was practicing standing between two benches while Jonathan and Zeke held either side of her waist. Not walking, not yet, but trying. Jonathan started bringing food. Sandwiches. Hot cocoa. Once, ribs from a place Zeke mentioned liking. The boy always said thank you, always offered to share, always saved a piece for someone else, a woman named Miss Audrey who ran the shelter nearby and sometimes let him crash on a cot when it got too cold. You sleep at a shelter? Jonathan asked one day, startled. Zeke shrugged. Not always. Sometimes the church. Sometimes nowhere. You don't have family. Zeke went quiet. Not the kind that sticks. Jonathan sat with that. Then nodded slowly. You do now. Zeke didn't react. Not right away. Just lowered his head, tapped his fingers on his notebook. But after a long pause, he whispered, "Thank you, sir." By the third month, Jonathan didn't need convincing anymore. He brought legal papers, made some calls. Arranged for Zeke to be enrolled in a local school part-time. Talked to Miss Audrey about guardianship options. Got him a proper winter coat, boots that didn't need duct tape, and, eventually, a room of his own. And Isla walked. It wasn't dramatic, not at first. One morning in early spring, under the blooming oak trees of Harrington Park, she stood. No braces. No support. Just slow, shaking legs. But she stood. Jonathan dropped to his knees. Tears rushed down his cheeks. "Baby girl," he whispered. "You're doing it." Zeke stayed silent. Watching. Then finally said, "You didn't just need me." She needed someone to believe it was possible. Word spread. Doctors heard about it. Not because Jonathan bragged, he didn't. But because one of Isla's physical therapists had come to a Saturday session, skeptical. And she'd left crying. Soon other parents came. A boy with spina bifida. A girl recovering from a car accident. A teenage athlete with spinal trauma. They sat in the grass. They watched. Some tried. Zeke worked with them all. He didn't claim miracles. Never said he had all the answers. But he had this way of listening to the body, of making kids feel seen, heard, whole. And sometimes, that was enough to make change happen. The local news showed up. Then national outlets. They called him the boy healer of Birmingham. He hated the name. "I'm not magic," he told one reporter. "I just pay attention." One Saturday, months after their first meeting, Jonathan pulled Zeke aside. "You ever think about med school?" Zeke blinked. "I mean, maybe. But that stuff costs money I don't got." "You do now," Jonathan said, handing him an envelope. Inside was a trust fund. A scholarship account. Seeded by donations, but backed by Jonathan himself. Zeke stared at it. "You serious?" "As a heart attack." Zeke sat down hard on the bench. He didn't speak for a full minute. Then he opened his notebook and scribbled something quickly, tearing the page out and handing it to Jonathan. It was a sketch, Isla, standing tall, arms lifted like wings. And beneath her, a single word written in block letters, "Believe." Years later, when Zeke Carter walked across the stage at UAB Medical School, class president, dual degrees in neuroscience and physical therapy, he wore a red knit beanie tucked into his gown pocket. When asked what kept him going, he always gave the same answer. Because once, someone listened to a kid with duct-taped boots. And that changed everything. 3 years later, in a modest brick building on the west side of Birmingham, a new clinic opened its doors. There was no ribbon-cutting ceremony with flashing cameras. No senators or CEOs making speeches. Just a crowd of families, children in wheelchairs, teens on crutches, and old folks holding each other's hands, all gathered around a sign that read, "The Carter Center for Restorative Movement." Founded by Dr. Ezekiel Zeke Carter. The body remembers. So does the soul. Inside, the space was unlike any medical facility in the city. Instead of cold linoleum and white walls, there were soft textures, warm lights, murals of dancers and dreamers. A sensory wall ran across one side of the lobby, designed for kids with autism. In the center of the building stood a glass room called the Grove, filled with small trees, light music, and benches. Therapy sessions often took place there. Zeke said it helped the mind relax enough to let the muscles follow. And at the heart of the clinic, Zeke kept a framed photo of Isla and Jonathan, taken the day she ran down a hill for the first time, her legs pumping, arms flailing, face wide with freedom. Jonathan had passed the year before, cancer. Quietly. Peacefully. But not before setting up the foundation that would support the clinic for decades to come. Not before seeing Isla get accepted into a pre-med program, determined to one day work beside Zeke. "I didn't just get my daughter back," he told the board once. "I got a son too." The boy who listened. Zeke never stopped learning. He traveled to Haiti to study movement therapy in earthquake survivors. He spent a summer in Ghana, studying ancestral healing rituals that aligned startlingly with neurokinetic science. He kept notebooks, hundreds of them, filled with sketches, notes, theories. But he never forgot Harrington Park. Every Saturday, no matter what city he was in, he walked into a public park with a backpack and sat on a bench. Just in case someone needed him. And they always did. Sometimes it was a grieving father. A war veteran with tremors. A child with silence in his eyes and fists clenched tight. Zeke didn't promise cures. He promised presence. And sometimes that was enough to change a life. Full circle. One quiet evening, Zeke stood in the grove, overlooking a new intake group. A small boy struggled with a walker, a patch over one eye, his hands shaking. Behind him stood his sister, nervous, tired, protective. Zeke stepped forward. "Keenan," the boy said shyly, answering the intake form. Zeke knelt. "You know, I used to be scared of walking too," he said. "But someone told me once, walking's not about strength. It's about remembering that moving forward is possible." Keenan looked up. "Did you really walk with duct-taped boots?" Zeke grinned. "Wanna see them?" He walked to a cabinet and pulled out a shadow box. Inside were the old boots, duct tape and all, mounted above a plaque that read, "For the ones who were told impossible." Keenan touched the glass. "Think I could walk like you one day?" Zeke looked him in the eyes, steady and sure. "Kid," he said. "You'll walk farther." 3 years later, in a modest brick building on the west side of Birmingham, a new clinic quietly opened its doors. No grand ceremonies. No ribbon cutting. Just a gathering of families, children in wheelchairs, teenagers on crutches, elders holding each other's hands, all standing beneath a sign that read, "The Carter Center for Restorative Movement." Founded by Dr. Ezekiel Zeke Carter. The body remembers. So does the soul. Inside, the clinic was unlike any other. Instead of cold white walls, there were soft textures and warm lights. Murals of dancers and dreamers covered the walls. A sensory wall for kids with autism ran down one side of the lobby. At its heart stood the grove, a glass room filled with small trees, gentle music, and quiet benches where therapy sessions took place, helping minds relax so bodies could follow. Zeke kept a framed photo on the wall, Isla running down a hill, legs pumping, arms wide, face bursting with freedom. A moment he had fought so hard to reclaim. Jonathan, Isla's father and Zeke's closest friend, had passed the year before, quietly and peacefully after setting up the foundation to support the clinic. Before he left, he saw Isla accepted into pre-med, determined to work alongside Zeke. "I didn't just get my daughter back," Zeke said once to the board. "I got a son too." The boy who listened. Zeke never stopped learning. He traveled the world, Haiti, Ghana, countless cities, studying movement therapy and ancestral healing rituals that echoed the science he practiced. Every Saturday, no matter where he was, Zeke sat on a bench in a park, ready for whoever needed him next. A grieving father. A war veteran. A child with clenched fists and silence in his eyes. He never promised miracles. Only presence. Sometimes, that was enough. Full circle. One evening in the grove, Zeke watched a new group come in. A small boy with a walker, an eye patch, and trembling hands. His sister stood behind him, nervous, protective. Zeke stepped forward. "Keenan," the boy said quietly. "Keenan." Zeke knelt to his level. "You know, I used to be scared of walking too," he said softly. "But someone once told me, walking isn't about strength. It's about remembering it's possible." Keenan looked up, curiosity flickering in his eyes. "Did you really walk with duct-taped boots?" Zeke smiled. "Want to see them?" He opened a cabinet and pulled out a shadow box. Inside, the old boots, worn, taped, sat beneath a plaque. "For the ones who were told impossible." Keenan touched the glass. "Think I can walk like you?" Zeke looked steady and sure. "Kid, you'll walk farther." Thread of time. From a bench in a park to a clinic that healed a community, from whispered doubts to roars of possibility, Zeke Carter didn't justify the odds. He redefined them. And he left the world better, one step at a time. Soft amber light filters through tall windows. The walls glow with murals of dancers in mid-motion, painted in bright, hopeful colors. The sounds of gentle music and faint laughter echo. Zeke Carter stands near the entrance, watching a small group enter. Among them is Keenan, a boy about 7, with an eye patch and a walker. His sister holds his hand tightly, eyes wary. Zeke, kneeling, warm smile. "Keenan, right? I'm Dr. Carter. I hear you're ready to take some big steps." Keenan looks up at Zeke, curiosity piqued but cautious. "Keenan, did you really walk with those duct-taped boots?" Zeke chuckles softly, then stands and leads Keenan to a shadow box mounted on the wall. "Zeke, come see for yourself." Inside the box, worn boots sit taped with silver duct tape, relics of a painful past but a powerful story. "Zeke, so indeed. These boots helped me take my first steps when everyone said I never would." Keenan reaches out and gently touches the glass, eyes wide. "Keenan, think I can walk like you?" Zeke crouches beside him again, voice steady and confident. "Zeke. Kid, you're going to walk farther. Much farther." Keenan nods, a flicker of hope breaking through. The Grove, night. The glass-walled therapy room glows softly. Small trees sway gently, aided by a subtle airflow. Inside, patients of all ages move slowly through exercises, smiles growing. Zeke observes from a bench nearby, notebook in hand, jotting thoughts. The air feels calm, almost sacred. Isla Carter, now a young woman in scrubs, enters carrying therapy tools. "Isla. Dad, you've got visitors." Zeke looks up, smiling. "Zeke. Looks like this place keeps growing, and so do we." Park bench, day, flashback. Younger Zeke sits alone on a park bench, boots cracked and taped, breathing in the crisp air. A father nearby watches his restless child, who struggles with a cane. Zeke approaches, sits beside the child. "Zeke. Walking's not about strength. It's about remembering it's possible." Clinic lobby, day. A bustling scene. Patients wait, therapists guide sessions, laughter and chatter mix with quiet moments of focus. Zeke walks through, shaking hands, offering encouragement. He pauses at the entrance, looking out through the windows. Sometimes the hardest steps are the first ones. But every step forward is a victory, for the body, and for the soul.